Were there times from your experience as a driver where you were able to notice that gap in the market, that the potential for efficiency and the potential for making connections that are mutually beneficial, both for the team to increase their performance, but also to put someone who has that passion for racing, that drive to deliver, to put them in the right role? Were you able to spot some problems at the time that you felt you had a solution to, or were there positive examples too of people you felt, oh wow, that person really is found their job well?
Yeah, it comes down to, for me, it comes down to one word really, and it's passion. And if you're not passionate about motorsport, then you shouldn't be going into it. It's a tough industry. It's long hours. It's hard work, but it's also adrenaline-filled, exciting, amazing, and like nothing else. So you do see opportunities. And through my time through the industry, of course, data is one thing that's grown massively. When I started driving, there wasn't really any data as such from the car. So as a driver, you could get away with saying anything, because nobody could prove whether it was a driver error or whether it was actually a problem with the car. Now you can't get away with anything because everything is logged, isn't it, on the cars? So the growth of the data side of it is quite interesting, and having these guys coming in now analysing all the data and finding performance in that way, which is a relatively new thing. But if I just talk about the passion for a minute, because I was giving a talk at a university, and I said it helps if you guys can think of the area that you're interested in the car. That's quite an important thing. What is it you really want to do? What interests you? And if you've done Formula Student, for example, that might help, because you've maybe worked on different areas of the car. Is it the suspension, electronics, the engines, whatever it might be? And I asked this question, and one guy put his hand up and he says, dampers. So I bloody love dampers. I was like, wow, that's really specific area of the car. And he went on to tell me that he built his own damper dyno rig, and he's forever taking apart. He does his own valving on the dampers and so on. And I was like, you need to meet my mate who's head of one of the biggest damper companies in the world. So I put him in touch with guys in Sweden, and I said, this guy's as passionate about dampers as you are. Oh, it's impossible. Nobody's as passionate as me. And I said, he bloody is. So they got in touch, and cut long story short, he's working for them. And that was a relatively easy slot for me. The worst thing for me is when people with lots of passion come up and say, I'll do anything. And that makes it actually quite difficult, because it's like, right, well, okay, so where do I put you in then? Where do I suggest you go? It's quite difficult, that. So it always helps if you've got obviously a ton of enthusiasm, but also a passion for a certain aspect of the car.
And is there any way you would recommend, people going out and being able to search for that bit on the car? For some people, like the dampener guy, it might just seem obvious to him, but maybe when someone's watching racing, if there's any bit that stands out in their memory of, oh, I thought tire strategy was really interesting there, or fuel maintenance.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you think it just comes naturally in people, the way they engage with motorsport as a fan, the bits that stand out to them might be where their path lies?
Well, I think what you tend to find is that people who are massive fans and watch it on TV, of course, they only see the trackside part of motorsport. So it's particularly watching Formula One with the really quick pit stops and all that kind of thing, they want to be part of the pit crew maybe, which obviously is an option, but there's so much more going on behind the scenes, and not only in the pit garage with all the data and so on, and like you say, the strategists who are absolutely brilliant, but back at the factory, the factories are buzzing, and the big teams, certainly F1, there'd be 600-700 people there, so it's quite a big operation, and most of them have got their own wind tunnel now, and they develop the cars there. So I think that's the first decision. Do you want to be at the factory side of life? So maybe you're helping develop the car, you're designing components for the car, you're working in the wind tunnel, you're doing all these things, or you're working on a composite design, or do you want to be traveling with the team and working trackside? And there's ups and downs with it. For me, it was always the exciting part was working at a track, and that's what I loved and still do. But the travelling's a killer, and it seems exciting at first, but once you've seen that many bloody airports, you soon get tired of it. But I've said that when you're in your 20s and 30s, life's exciting, isn't it? And you don't mind the travelling and so on, you put up with it. But then typically you might want to move to a factory role once you've got a family and all those sort of pressures kick in. And sure, by watching the TV, you can gain a lot of knowledge now in depth, like it never used to be, with like Ted Kravitz and what have you, going into details of the car. It is very interesting, and you might spot something in there that they really like. And the typical people that end up in the pit lane have probably started off fixing their push bikes or their motorbikes or their own cars and so on, and they enjoy mechanics basically. They get it and they kind of enjoy it, and then that leads you into into motorsport in one way or another. And which leads me on to the biggest problem that all graduates have got, is getting experience, because motorsport's bad for this, but I think every industry to a degree is. But they always want experience, and it's like, how do you get experience if nobody will give me the chance to get experience? So
absolutely,
you've really got to fight for it, and I think it is a case of who dares wins. And I would recommend going to some race meetings at the circuit that's nearest to you, and walking down the paddock and knock on some doors and ask if you can volunteer and just get your hands dirty at weekends and learn whatever aspect it might be. And if it's data you're interested in, try and get copies of the software so you can help understand it and analyze it. And you're probably best doing it on maybe the Friday, not maybe race day, because obviously the team's under pressure then and won't have any time for you. But if you could get down there on a test day or on a Friday or something, everything's a bit more laid back on a test day, and they'd listen to you then, and somebody will give you a chance. You might have to knock on 20 doors or keep asking people, but somebody will. And I was at a friend of mine who runs a prototype Le Mans team, and I think we were in Italy, and I said to him, how many times has somebody knocked on your door and asked if they can come and volunteer? And he said, oh, in the last 10 years. I said, yeah. He said, never. I was like, wow. Oh, right, okay. So, there are opportunities like that to be done. I know it's not easy, and being British doesn't help, because we're all kind of quite, reserved and so on. I mean, sometimes you just got to go for it and ask the question and try and get that initial experience, and then that'll help you find, hopefully, the area of motorsport that interests you most. And it might not be anything to do with the car. It might be media. It might be, you see all these photographers up and down, all the media people now. It's massive, obviously, because there's all the sponsorship involved in it. So maybe it's that side of life that interests you. It's not the engineering side. Or as we said, maybe it's factory based. It's trying to find that. It's not easy when you haven't had all the different experiences, but if you can help find that, and then you can find somebody, for example, on LinkedIn that's already doing the job you'd love, and you can ask them, and most people are really good. I deal with very few idiots in the motorsport world, if I'm honest. Some engineers are very difficult to work with, but they're not stupid, and they generally would try and help the next generation with some advice and some contacts and so on. Especially if you're doing something like a dissertation in a specific area, get older guys and ask them, would they give me some input to it? And you're almost getting in through the side door then, instead of just writing to reception to see if they've got any internships, and you're just on this massive pile with a load of other people,